Hi everyone, I'm so glad to see you here again. Welcome to our new listening series. Today we're going to talk about something we all do often, going to the supermarket. In this 5-part story, I'll take you with me from making a shopping list to coming back home and putting the groceries away. It's a real-life situation full of useful words and sentences. You'll learn how to talk about shopping, food, prices, and more, all in English. So, are you ready to start this little shopping adventure with me? Let's begin with Episode 1. Episode 1, Making the Shopping List. This morning, I opened the fridge and saw that it was almost empty. The milk carton was half full, and there were only 2 eggs left. I realized it was time to go shopping. I grabbed a notebook and a pen from the kitchen drawer. I always write a list before going to the supermarket. It helps me stay organized and not forget anything. First, I checked what we needed for breakfast. We were out of bread, butter, and jam. I wrote them down one by one on the paper. Next, I looked in the fruit basket. There were only 2 old apples. I added bananas, oranges, and grapes to the list. In the vegetable drawer, I found 1 lonely tomato. I wrote down cucumbers, lettuce, and bell peppers. We needed fresh vegetables for salads. I also remembered we were out of potatoes. We use them almost every day. I quickly added potatoes and onions to the list. Then I thought about lunch and dinner. We had no chicken, fish, or rice. I added those 3 things right away. We still had some pasta in the cupboard. But we needed pasta sauce and cheese. I put them on the list too. I opened the cupboard to check the snacks. There were no cookies left. I added cookies, chips, and some chocolate to the list. I wanted to buy a few drinks as well. I wrote down orange juice, bottled water, and 1 soda for the weekend. Then I remembered the dairy products. The milk was almost gone. We also needed yogurt and cheese. I added all 3 items to the list. We use eggs almost every day for cooking. Only 2 were left in the fridge. I wrote a dozen eggs on the paper. I checked the bathroom for cleaning products. We needed dish soap, laundry detergent, and some sponges. I added them to the list. I walked around the house thinking of anything else. I remembered we were low on toilet paper and paper towels. I wrote those down too. In the end, I had a long list. It covered everything we needed for the next week. I felt proud of my planning. I checked my wallet to see how much cash I had. I also took my credit card just in case. I don't like running out of money at the store. Then I folded the list and put it in my jacket pocket. I got dressed, wore my sneakers, and picked up my reusable shopping bags. I was ready to leave the house. I locked the door behind me. The weather was nice and cool. The supermarket was just a 15-minute walk away. I decided to enjoy the fresh air and walk there. It's good exercise, too. On the way, I passed by the bakery. The smell of fresh bread was amazing. It made me feel even more excited to shop. I thought again about my list. I wanted to stick to it and not buy too many extra things. Staying focused is important while shopping. I saw a mother and her child carrying shopping bags. It reminded me of my childhood. I used to go shopping with my mom every weekend. I finally reached the supermarket. The parking lot was busy, but there was still space to walk in. I grabbed a shopping cart near the entrance. I took my list out of my pocket. I looked at the first item: bread. I smiled and pushed the cart inside. The doors opened automatically as I approached. I heard the soft background music inside. The air smelled fresh and clean. I looked around and felt calm. Shopping always makes me feel relaxed. It's like a small adventure in daily life. I started walking toward the bread section, but I'll tell you all about that in the next episode. Stay with me. Episode 2, Walking Through the Aisles. I pushed my cart toward the bread section. There were many types of bread on the shelves. I picked a loaf of whole wheat bread. Next to the bread, I saw some fresh rolls. They looked soft and golden. I took a small pack and put it in my cart. I looked at my list again and saw butter and jam. I walked to the dairy section where the cold items were kept. The butter was in a big fridge with many brands. I chose one that I usually buy. It was smooth and creamy. I moved on to find jam. There were so many flavors like strawberry, apricot, and blueberry. I picked strawberry because it's my favorite. Then I looked for fruits. I walked to the produce section with all the fresh colors. The smell of ripe fruit was wonderful. I put some bananas in a bag and weighed them. Then I chose 5 oranges and a bunch of grapes. I also picked up 3 apples that looked fresh and shiny. I love snacking on apples during the day. Next, I searched for vegetables. I picked 2 cucumbers and 1 big head of lettuce. They looked fresh and green. I also found some red bell peppers and placed them in a bag. Then I grabbed a few tomatoes for salads. Potatoes were next on the list. I took a small bag and filled it with 6 medium potatoes. Then I picked 3 onions. I placed everything carefully in the cart. The vegetables looked colorful and healthy. I felt happy to buy fresh food. Now it was time to get chicken and fish. I headed to the meat section where a worker stood behind a counter. I asked politely, "Can I have 2 chicken breasts, please?" He smiled and wrapped them for me. I thanked him and looked at the fish section. I chose a piece of fresh salmon. It looked perfect for dinner. Then I walked to the rice aisle. There were many types, but I wanted something simple. I picked white long grain rice. The pasta section was just next to the rice. I already had pasta at home, but I needed sauce and cheese. I chose a bottle of tomato sauce and a small packet of shredded cheese. They would go great with spaghetti. I moved to the snack aisle next. It was full of colorful packages and tasty treats. I picked some cookies and chips. I looked at the chocolate section. I picked 1 milk chocolate bar. It was a little treat for later. Then I walked over to the drinks aisle. I needed orange juice, bottled water, and 1 can of soda. I picked a big bottle of orange juice. Then I chose a 6-pack of small water bottles. For the soda, I picked my favorite brand. I don't drink it often, but I enjoy it sometimes. I was almost done, but I still needed dairy items. I grabbed a carton of milk and 2 small yogurts. I already got the butter and cheese, so I checked my list. The next things were cleaning products. I went to the cleaning aisle. The smell of soap was strong, but clean. I picked up dish soap and laundry detergent. I also needed some sponges. I chose a 3-pack with different colors. They were soft and strong. Then I remembered paper products. I picked a big pack of toilet paper. I also took 1 roll of paper towels. My cart was almost full now. I looked at everything I had bought. It was colorful and full of healthy options. I double-checked my list again. I had everything I wrote down. Nothing was missing. I also didn't buy too many extra things. I was proud of myself for staying focused. Then I looked at the frozen food section. I wasn't planning to buy anything frozen, but I decided to take a quick look. I saw frozen pizza, ice cream, and vegetables. I didn't need pizza or veggies, but I picked a small ice cream cup. It was a reward for my careful shopping. Just something sweet for the weekend. I also remembered to check the expiry dates. I always look at those before buying anything. Everything I bought was fresh and good. I smiled and pushed my cart toward the checkout area. There were several checkout lanes open. Some were self-checkout and some had cashiers. I decided to use the regular checkout. I enjoy talking to the cashier a little. I waited in line for a few minutes. The person in front of me had a full cart. While waiting, I checked my phone for messages. I also looked at the posters around the store. There were discounts on cleaning supplies. I had already picked up some, so I was happy. When it was my turn, I greeted the cashier with a smile. "Hi, how are you?" I asked. She replied kindly and started scanning my items. I packed them into my reusable bags. I tried to keep the heavy things at the bottom. The eggs and bread went on top. She told me the total was $57.30. I paid with my card and waited for the receipt. She handed it to me and said, "Have a nice day." I thanked her and smiled. I pushed my cart outside. The weather was still nice and sunny. I felt relaxed and happy. I looked at my bags full of food. I felt good knowing I had everything for the week. As I walked home, I thought about what to cook first. Maybe pasta tonight and fish tomorrow. Carrying the bags was a little heavy. But I didn't mind. I felt healthy and strong. The walk back was quiet and peaceful. I passed the bakery again, but didn't stop this time. I wanted to go home and put everything away. The fridge was waiting to be filled again. I arrived at my front door and opened it. I took off my shoes and brought the bags inside. The kitchen was clean and ready. I placed the bags on the counter and smiled. I would put everything away slowly and calmly. But I'll tell you more about that in the next episode. Episode 3: Unpacking the Groceries. I placed all my bags on the kitchen table. The table looked full of fresh and colorful items. I took a deep breath and smiled. I started by taking out the fruits. I washed the apples, grapes, and oranges. Then I put them in a bowl on the counter. The bananas were still green. I placed them next to the window. They would ripen in a few days. Next, I took out the vegetables. I washed the lettuce, cucumbers, and tomatoes. I wrapped them in paper towels and stored them in the fridge. The potatoes and onions didn't need to go in the fridge. I put them in a basket under the counter. Then I took out the chicken and fish. I checked the labels to see the expiry dates. I put them in the freezer for later. I put the orange juice in the door shelf. It was easy to reach for breakfast. The bottled water went into a cabinet near the sink. I stacked the rice and tomato sauce in the pantry. I also placed the jam and cookies on a small shelf. The cleaning products stayed under the sink. I organized the sponges, soap, and detergent in separate baskets. The toilet paper and paper towels went to the bathroom cabinet. I felt good putting everything in the right place. Now the kitchen was tidy again. I washed my hands and sat down to rest for a moment. After resting, I decided to cook something simple. I chose to make pasta with tomato sauce and cheese. I took out a pot and filled it with water. Then I placed it on the stove and turned on the heat. The water started boiling. I added a handful of pasta, I stirred it slowly and let it cook. After 10 minutes, the pasta was soft. I drained it and poured the sauce over it. I sprinkled cheese on top. It smelled delicious and looked perfect. I served the pasta on a plate. Then I added some salad on the side. I poured a glass of orange juice. It was a simple but healthy meal. I sat at the table and started eating. The pasta tasted great, and the salad was fresh. I felt proud that I cooked using what I had just bought. It made everything more meaningful. After eating, I cleaned the dishes. I washed the pot, plate, and fork. Then I wiped down the table. The kitchen was clean again. I felt relaxed and ready to rest. I made a cup of tea and sat on the couch. I looked out the window and saw the sky turning orange. I looked at my phone to check the time. It was already evening. I thought about tomorrow. I planned to cook chicken with rice. I would also make soup later this week. The vegetables I bought would be perfect for that. I remembered the ice cream I bought. I went to the freezer and took it out. It was a small cup, just the right size. I grabbed a spoon and sat down again. The ice cream was sweet and creamy. It was a nice way to end the day. I didn't eat the whole cup. I saved half for another time. Then I made a list of meals for the week. Planning ahead helped me stay organized. I also planned to drink more water. The small bottles I bought would help me remember. I looked at the fruit bowl. The apples and grapes looked fresh. I could snack on them tomorrow. I decided to take out the trash. It was a good time to clear the kitchen completely. I tied the garbage bag and took it outside. The evening air felt cool and calm. I came back inside and washed my hands again. Then I turned off the kitchen light. My body felt tired but satisfied. I had done a lot today. I lay down on the couch and picked up a book. I read for a few minutes. My eyes started to feel heavy. I put the book down and closed my eyes. I didn't fall asleep right away. I thought about how nice it was to have food at home. Doing the shopping and organizing made me feel responsible. It gave me a sense of peace. Tomorrow I would continue cooking and using what I bought. I would also freeze some extra food for busy days. That way I wouldn't have to cook all the time. Meal prep is helpful when life gets busy. It saves time and energy. I turned off the TV and got up from the couch. It was time to get ready for bed. I brushed my teeth and changed into pajamas. Then I turned off the bedroom lights. I lay in bed thinking about the day. It was simple but productive. Supermarket shopping is more than just buying food. It's part of daily life and self-care. As I closed my eyes, I felt calm. I was ready to rest and wake up fresh. The fridge was full, the kitchen was clean, and I had a plan for tomorrow. That feeling of being prepared helped me relax. I smiled and slowly fell asleep. Shopping, cooking, and resting. A simple and happy routine. In the next episode, I'll tell you about cooking lunch and storing food properly. So stay tuned and keep learning with me. See you in the next one. Episode 4, Cooking Lunch and Storing Food. The next day, I woke up feeling hungry. I remembered the groceries I bought. I was excited to cook lunch. First, I opened the fridge to check my ingredients. The chicken I bought yesterday looked fresh. I took it out and placed it on the counter. I also grabbed 2 tomatoes and an onion. I washed them under cold water. Then I put them on a cutting board. I peeled the onion and chopped it into small pieces. I did the same with the tomatoes. I placed them in separate bowls. Next, I cut the chicken into bite-sized pieces. I used a clean knife and kept my hands dry. It was easy and quick. I turned on the stove and heated a pan. I added a little oil to it. When it got hot, I added the onions. The onions sizzled in the pan. They smelled sweet and delicious. I stirred them gently. After 2 minutes, I added the chicken. I mixed it well with the onions. The color started to change. Then I added the tomatoes. They made a nice sauce in the pan. I also added a pinch of salt and pepper. I let everything cook for 15 minutes. I stirred the food every few minutes. The kitchen filled with a tasty smell. I added the rice to the boiling water. I lowered the heat and covered the pot. I let it cook for 12 minutes. After checking, the rice was soft and fluffy. I turned off the heat. I let it sit for a few minutes. By then, the chicken was done too. It looked juicy and flavorful. I turned off the stove. I served some rice on a plate. Then I added the chicken and sauce on top. It looked like a perfect lunch. I added a spoonful of yogurt on the side. It helped cool down the spices. I also poured a glass of cold water. I sat at the table and started eating. Each bite was warm and tasty. I enjoyed every moment. The tomatoes added a nice flavor. The rice was soft and fresh. The yogurt balanced everything. After finishing my meal, I cleaned the dishes. I washed the plate, pan, and spoon. I wiped the counter and table. Then I packed the leftover food. I used a clean container with a lid. I wrote the date on it. Food storage is very important. It keeps things fresh and safe. It also saves time later. I checked all the containers in the fridge. Some items needed to be used soon. I planned to make soup tomorrow. I took a picture of the inside of my fridge. It helped me remember what I had. I could plan meals more easily. I also checked the freezer. The fish and meat were frozen well. I didn't need to buy more this week. Next, I organized the pantry. I arranged the canned food, rice, and pasta. I placed the snacks in a small basket. I checked the expiry dates. Everything was still good. I felt more in control. I made a short list of meals for the next 3 days. It included pasta, soup, and fish with rice. Meal planning helps reduce waste. It also saves money. I enjoy the process. After organizing, I sat down and had a cup of tea. I felt relaxed and happy. Cooking brings comfort. I turned on soft music and rested for a while. I looked out the window. The weather was sunny and calm. Later, I decided to freeze some of the chicken. I packed it in a freezer bag. I wrote the date with a marker. I looked at the fruits. The bananas were turning yellow. I peeled 2 and sliced them. I placed the slices in a small bag and froze them. They would be good for smoothies. I also cut a few grapes and stored them in a box. They made a great snack. The apples stayed in the fruit bowl. I planned to eat one after dinner. Apples are healthy and sweet. I made sure all food was covered. Nothing was left open. It helps prevent bad smells. Then I cleaned the fridge shelves. I used a damp cloth with lemon water. It smelled fresh and clean. The kitchen was now neat and organized. I felt proud of my work. Cooking and cleaning went well today. I remembered to drink more water. I opened a small bottle. It was cold and refreshing. I checked my food budget. I still had some money left. I could buy eggs and tea next week. Planning meals helped me stay focused. I didn't feel stressed anymore. Everything was under control. I also wrote down a new recipe idea. It was for a vegetable soup. I wanted to try it soon. I watched a cooking video online. It gave me tips for using leftovers. Nothing should go to waste. I made a habit of writing what I ate. It helped me stay healthy. I liked seeing my progress. Before dinner, I made a small salad. Just cucumbers, tomatoes, and lemon. I added olive oil and salt. I placed the salad in the fridge. It would be ready for later. Cold salads are great with warm food. I took a short walk outside. I felt light and refreshed. Moving after meals is healthy. When I came back, I made rice again. This time, I added peas and carrots. It was colorful and tasty. I also reheated the leftover chicken. It still tasted fresh. I was happy I stored it well. I enjoyed dinner while watching a movie. Eating at home felt cozy. The room was quiet and warm. After dinner, I cleaned up again. I washed the dishes and wiped the table. The kitchen sparkled. I checked the freezer one more time. Everything was stored safely. I felt ready for the week ahead. Being organized helped me feel calm. I didn't need to worry about meals. I had enough for several days. Tomorrow I will make soup with fresh vegetables. I also plan to bake a simple cake. So stay tuned for the next episode. It's going to be delicious and fun. Episode 5. Making soup and baking a cake. This morning I felt full of energy. The sun was shining outside. I decided to make soup and bake a cake. I checked the fridge first. I still had fresh vegetables. I took out carrots, potatoes, and a small cabbage. I also grabbed an onion and a tomato. They would add flavor to the soup. I placed them on the counter. I washed all the vegetables carefully. I used cold water and dried them with a towel. Clean food is healthy food. I peeled the carrots and potatoes. Then I chopped them into small cubes. It didn't take much time. I sliced the cabbage and diced the onion. I also cut the tomato into small pieces. The colors looked beautiful. I heated a big pot on the stove. I added a little olive oil. When the oil got hot, I added the onions. The onions turned golden brown. I stirred them gently. Then I added the tomato and let it cook for 2 minutes. Next, I added the carrots and potatoes. I mixed them well. Then I poured in 4 cups of water. I added salt, pepper, and a pinch of turmeric. The soup started to smell delicious. I let it boil for 10 minutes. After that, I added the cabbage. I lowered the heat. The soup simmered gently. I placed the lid on the pot. I waited for 20 more minutes. I cleaned the kitchen while I waited. The soup was ready after 30 minutes. It was hot and full of flavor. I tasted it with a spoon. I poured some into a bowl. I added a bit of lemon juice on top. It made the soup even better. I ate it slowly while sitting by the window. It felt warm and comforting. I felt very satisfied. After finishing my soup, I washed the pot and bowl. Then I prepared the ingredients for the cake. I used flour, eggs, sugar, milk, and oil. I also added a little vanilla. I wanted a simple vanilla cake. First, I broke 2 eggs into a bowl. I added half a cup of sugar. I mixed them well with a whisk. Then I added 1 cup of milk and half a cup of oil. I stirred everything together. It was smooth and creamy. In another bowl, I mixed flour and baking powder. I added this to the wet mixture slowly. I stirred until the batter was ready. It looked soft and thick. I tasted a little and smiled. I poured the batter into a baking pan. I greased the pan with butter first. That helps prevent sticking. I preheated the oven to 180 degrees. Then I placed the pan inside. I set a timer for 30 minutes. While the cake was baking, I cleaned the bowls. I also wiped the counter. I love a tidy kitchen. The smell of cake filled the house. It was warm and sweet. I checked it after 25 minutes. I used a toothpick to test it. It came out clean. That meant the cake was ready. I turned off the oven and took out the pan. The cake was golden brown. It looked perfect. I let it cool on the counter. Then I cut a small piece. It was soft and fluffy. I made a cup of tea and sat down. I enjoyed the cake with tea. It was a peaceful afternoon. Later, I packed the rest of the cake in a container. I would share it with my friend tomorrow. Baking always makes me happy. It reminds me of good times. It's simple and joyful. After resting for a while, I made a to-do list for tomorrow. I planned to freeze some soup. I labeled a container and poured the extra soup into it. I put it in the freezer. Now I had a meal ready for another day. That made me feel smart and prepared. I sat on the sofa and opened my notebook. I wrote about my cooking day. It was relaxing to reflect. I also made a list of recipes to try. I included spaghetti, pancakes, and vegetable rice. I felt thankful for all the food I had. Not everyone has this chance. I wanted to use everything wisely. I decided to make cooking a daily habit. Even simple meals can bring happiness. Before bed, I drank a glass of water. I checked the fridge and turned off the lights. I felt tired but content. It was a good day. My kitchen smelled like cake and soup. This week has been full of food and learning. I planned, shopped, cooked, and stored food. It helped me feel organized. I didn't waste anything. I learned how to save time and money. Now I enjoy being in the kitchen. It's not hard if you plan ahead. I even like washing dishes. So if you're afraid to cook, don't be. Just start with small things. You'll get better each time. Cooking is not just about food, it's also about care, love, and health. I hope you enjoyed this journey with me. From shopping to cooking, it was fun and useful. I'm excited to explore new recipes next week. Maybe I'll try something international. Let's keep learning and enjoying food together. Cooking is a life skill worth having. Thanks for staying with me through this experience. Now, let's finish with a few final words. Thank you for joining me on this 5-episode journey. We started by going to the supermarket. Then we planned meals, cooked delicious food, and learned how to store it properly. Through each episode, we discovered how food brings comfort and joy. We also saw how planning saves time, money, and reduces waste. From chopping vegetables to baking cake, every moment taught us something useful. We learned that cooking doesn't have to be hard. It just takes a little patience and practice. I hope these episodes helped you improve your English listening skills while also teaching you daily life tips. Now it's your turn. Go shopping, try a recipe, and speak English while you do it. Practice makes progress. Stay tuned for the next topic in our English listening series. Until then, take care and keep learning.